Assalamualaikum and good morning to the panels that are present for today's presentation. My name is Diana binti Daling. I am under Socio-Culture group supervised by Dr. Alice. So for this semester, we are doing a social housing. And today I would like to present my pre-thesis title in social housing, which is called So House, Rethinking Women's Safety and Welfare in Social Housing. So according to the studies that I've read, social housing is basically a housing development that is provided for those who are vulnerable and unable to access the housing market. As we know that Malaysia are experiencing housing affordability problem, and it means that consumers do not have the purchasing capability to own a property. So this problem eventually creates a realization towards the government, and the government has eventually introduced extensive programs and efforts in provision of low-cost housing in order to provide access for the low-income groups to own a house. So referring to the slides, these are the housing schemes that are available in Malaysia. And initially, the housing policy and program implemented is focused only on the poor and the low-income group. However, because of today's Malaysian economy, we know that the housing prices has eventually escalating very, very quickly. So this eventually creates another housing affordability problem towards the middle-income group as well. So this eventually creates an opportunity for me to design a social housing that includes all income groups in Malaysia in one social housing. So this is a diagram that shows the percentage of B40 households. And although I have mentioned that I would like to include all income groups in one community, I also have a specific target group that I would like to specifically cater, which is underprivileged women. And the reason why I would like to include all the income groups surrounding the underprivileged women is because I would like to create a sustainable community within a housing territory. So this is the statistic of single mothers in the year 2000 until 2010, because we know that single mothers also is categorized as underprivileged women. So based on the research that I've done, I have compiled 3 social issues and architectural issues that could relate with my design. And my social issue number 1 is that the abundance of low-cost housing often creates a concentration of poverty. So when we have this segregation, it eventually creates another social problem, and this is an unhealthy territory to be in, especially for these underprivileged women who are recovering themselves from traumatic events. So my social issue number 2 is the rising of unemployment and low-skilled jobs amongst underprivileged women is concerning, especially for low-income family. Hence, I would like to introduce a social entrepreneurship platform in this social housing, which I will explain later on. My social issue number 3 is poor social capital, unequal income society, and gender inequality. So moving on to my architectural issue number 1. The typical layout of low-cost housing encourages crime activities within low-cost housing. So this, in the slides, we can see this is the typical layout of low-cost housing in PPR. It has a very, very long and narrow corridor. So my architectural issue number 2 is the inadequate pocket and common spaces in low-cost housing eventually decrease residents' interaction and sense of belonging. So after I have gathered the issues, I have made a background findings that explains my research question and research objective, and hence my thesis aim is to propose a social housing that addresses women's safety and welfare through social entrepreneurship and defensible space theory. This is the social issues, architectural issues that I have mentioned. And these are the theory that I have relate with my design. And this is just a brief thesis framework that I've made for my pre-thesis. So now I'm gonna explain the development of my design project, which is called Soul House. So basically the term Soul House is derived by combining two words into one, which is social entrepreneurship and house, which means that my intention of designing this social housing is for this underprivileged women to have a place for generating income and also a place to call home. Referring to the left part of the slide is the women's welfare that I would like to tackle, which is the economy aspect, social, psychological, and physical aspects. So the economy and the social aspect is very much related because I would like to introduce the program of social entrepreneurship, meaning that these underprivileged women also have the opportunity to enhance their life quality, having to balance these two aspects. And also for the psychological and physical aspect is also related with one another because I would like to implement the defensible space theory in the design. This is my building program. I have separated into 3 zoning vertically, which means that at the ground floor area is for public, and for first floor area is for the semi-private, which is open for the residents, and the third and the second floor and above is for the private and for private residents. So now I'm gonna explain my form making diagram. The first initial idea that I get from the site is to connect the nearby bus stand to the site. Hence, I created a axis facing the street so that the pedestrian from the bus stand could eventually go into the building, as it will hinder them from any crime. The second one is that I created 2 zoning for public and public resident, and it is divided accordingly to their facility. So for number 3, the divided zone is enclosed with spaces to maximize space usage. Number 4 is that I use the courtyard in the middle as play area for children, as it will enhance natural surveillance from the surrounding spaces. And then number 5 is that I created the first floor is for semi-private only, so the facility is only for resident, which means it includes co-working spaces, shared garden, and kindergarten. And number 6 is that all these co-working spaces and small offices are overlooking the courtyard below, as for the surveillance. And then number 7 is that I designed the housing units in cluster to create territoriality. And then number 8 is that I stacked the housing layouts overlooking the streets and the courtyard in the middle. And then number 9 is that I intended to create a social housing that has a low to mid-rise type of social housing with stacking housing. So this will respond to the scale of the site, and also it will enhance the image of the building itself, as stated in the defensible space theory by Oscar. So now I'm gonna explain my floor plans. And this is my ground floor plan. As you can see, I have created a connection from the bus stand towards the site. So the pedestrians are welcome to walk into the site and out from the side again. And this passersby of the pedestrian will eventually create a lively environment so that the building won't see as a threat towards the criminals. And then the next thing is that I have separated two zonings, which is I have explained earlier, and this is the public facility for public, open for public, and it is include community hall, which serves for wedding events or any other events. And then also it has a huge courtyard in the middle, so the children can play in the middle with natural surveillance from the spaces surrounding them. And then this part is also public, but it is for public resident, which means that it has their own open and close time. So for this area, it includes all the retail, which shop 1 and shop 2, and the laundry shop, the grocery store, the community clinic, and also the mini library. So moving on to the next one, which is my first floor plan. So first floor plan is a semi-private area, which means that this is where all the co-working activities or community gardening activities happens. And also in the middle is where I place the kindergarten, so that the movement of the kids is in the middle. But I also attach a play area overlooking the co-working spaces, so that the people that is working can also see what is happening in the play area. And I also have a community garden created for residents to enhance their social integration and community. And this is also a co-working spaces and community garden for the residents. Typical plan for the housing units in second and third floor plan. And as you can see, I arranged the housing units in cluster, which means that this one is a cluster number 1 and this 2 is cluster number 2, and it's the same at the opposite block. So by doing this, it will create a territoriality amongst the dwellings of each cluster. So